Now back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still.
That is a great Joni Mitchell song, the Neil Diamond version of Both Sides Now, playing just as we reintroduce David Halkett from Macquarie Hunter LLP, a family lawyer who does look at every case from both sides. Now, even though you typically would act for one of the parties, you have to know how both sides feel and work through the case. You can't work it in a vacuum, can you?
No, exactly. And actually, I'm probably looking at it from the third side, because I get the husband's side, I get the wife's side from their lawyers, they act for the husband.
Right.
And then the third way is probably what really happened. So
right.
The truth is out there.
Okay. We talked a lot about, we're talking about maintenance matters on this episode of The Law Show with David Halkett. We're talking about, of course, support matters, money issues, child maintenance, spousal support, special expenses. I think we pretty clearly identified, David. And we've determined that in terms of the court's priority, the awards, that is the monetary decisions, the ones affecting the children will be made first, and everything else falls in behind that.
Exactly. The child support is primary, and spousal support is afterwards.
But they do kind of get done together, although the child issues are technically paramount.
Exactly. We have these child support guidelines, which determine how much child support is paid. Then there's the spousal support advisory guidelines, which is came out in 2005 by two university profs from Ontario who determined, they basically reviewed the spousal support law and determined here's what the guidelines are. And it's computer programs, you plug them in, plug numbers in, and it tells you what it is. There's a couple of formulas, but the main one is child with child. So it means there's child support being paid and then spousals afterwards.
Okay. Now, can anyone listening to us right now go online somewhere? Because I know you lawyers do this. You have these formula, and the courts do it too.
Yep.
They have a mathematical formula in which you plug in the numbers, the wage, the assets, the income, and all of that of both parties, and then it just the algorithm kicks in,
exactly.
and the numbers emerge that should represent pretty close to the awards that are going to be given.
So for child support, you just simply can Google federal child support guidelines.
Okay.
And then follow the links, and it'll tell you which plug in the province that the payer is in. So if the payer lives in Manitoba, say dad lives there, assuming dad's a payer, you pay based on the Manitoba numbers.
I see.
Different tax rates, different incomes, and etc. That determines a child, saying how many children, where the parent lives, etc. Spousal support, we use a program called DivorceMate. Most lawyers use it. But there's also, you've just Googled spousal support advisory guidelines, or go to, when I mentioned earlier, J.P. Boyd's website.
Oh, sure, of course,
and you can go there and plug in, and he has calculators on his website as well.
Okay, so you just do a Google search, and it'll pop right up for you. Unfortunately, it's a pretty well-searched topic matter, isn't it?
It is.
And so when we're talking about spousal support, what are the basics of that formula?
Okay. Well, spousal support is there to, in effect, make up for economic disadvantages arising from the marriage. So there's a couple of formulas. One is what they call non-compensatory. So that means you just have a need. You make little money. You may not have lost anything by being married, but you make significantly less. So say you make $200,000 and your spouse makes $25,000.
Right.
There's no children, but she's always made $25,000 as whatever she did, and you always made $200,000, but you're married for 15 years. Well, at the end, she suffered an economic loss in that her standard of living has dropped considerably after separation.
Yep.
So they'll get maintenance there on her need. But then we have compensatory maintenance as well. So that arises a lot when someone stays home and takes care of the children for a long time. And you've lost out.
Sacrifices a career in many cases. Right.
So say if my wife has worked outside the home the majority of the marriage, except for the 1 year of mat leave. But if she had been at home, she would have lost out on promotions, increase in salary.
Yes.
Especially if you're working in a union shop, you lose out pension benefits all those time. And so by the time you come back in, you've lost seniority, you've lost this. How do we compensate for that? So that's compensatory maintenance,
and the court has a formula for making those
the same guidelines
compensation
apply.
Arrangements.
Yeah, and you keep getting maintenance even if you remarry until your compensation has been met. Now, usually, when you remarry, often maintenance ends, but it's not automatic. They have to make sure you're compensated for the loss you suffered.
Now, this is a little something you just dropped there. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think that, for example, if I'm paying child support to my ex-wife, the day she gets married, I am done. I am off the hook. See ya.
No.
And that's just not true.
No, child support is always going to be payable. But if you remember the show with Charlie Sheen and I always call him Ducky from I forget the name of the show. It's on TV now.
Oh, NCIS.
No, it was when 2.5 Men.
Okay, sure.
And I
sure.
remember when John Cryer figured out his wife was getting remarried. He starts doing a dance, no more alimony.
Right.
Now, that will apply potentially for needs-based maintenance, so the non-compensatory, but not necessarily compensatory if he hasn't met his compensation. So it's an interesting factor that kicks in.
Right. That's an interesting, good old-fashioned word that has not been a part of this conversation. We've been here almost an hour. Alimony. Is that an American term?
It is. Yeah, we use maintenance or support.
Okay.
We use.
But because
Means
you
the same
don't
thing.
hear it up here, but it is exactly the same
In
thing.
Quebec, though, it's still used in the French version.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. And so the court determines there are two types then of spousal compensation. There's the
non-compensatory.
Non-compensatory.
And compensatory.
So non-compensatory based on the individual's needs, and compensatory based on the what-ifs.
Yeah, what have they lost by having been married and stayed at home for caring for the children? The standard one is the stay-at-home mom. That's a pretty standard compensatory claim right there.
Okay.
And it's the question, though, you still have to factor in how much the person has to pay, of course. That still factors in. And it may be, even if you have a great compensatory claim, if the payer's income, usually the husband's, isn't very high, and there's children, there may not be any spousal maintenance to be paid, but it's still a claim that's there.
We're almost out of time here, but you mentioned that dreaded word tax a few minutes ago.
Yep.
Do any of these court awards for maintenance and support have tax implications?
Spousal support does. Child support used to be taxable and tax deductible, but that ended in 1997.
So if you were paying spousal support, you could write it off?
Child support back in 97.
Child support.
But that
I
ended
see.
in 97.
Okay.
Spousal support, though, it's kind of like an RSP deduction in that it's right off the top of your income. So dollar for dollar. But it has to be in an order or it has to be in an agreement.
And child support is not tax deductible because it's a human obligation, isn't it?
They reduced
Why
it.
should we be rewarded for doing what we're supposed to do?
And what happened, it was a claim that went to the Supreme Court of Canada or federal court that said that it was simply a situation where it was unfair to women because it was women who were paying the tax.
Right. Interesting stuff. So all of these, multiple factors to be.
Yep.
So basically, when it comes time for these unfortunate moments in life, this is not something that, no matter how emotionally devastating it may be, David, this is perhaps the time at which you most need the support of a competent, calm professional.
And you need to know your rights.
Yeah.
That's simple.
And our guest, David Halkett, has two associates as well.
That's correct.
In the family law section at Macquarie Hunter. You can find them easily online at macquarie.com. And that, by the way, friends, is spelled McQuarrie, Macquarie.com. Look up David Halkett. And who are your colleagues?
Leah Donaldson and Sarah Morse.
All right, Leah and Sarah also in there. All the phone numbers, emails,
Exactly.
and
our assistants' names and everything.
all right. So if you want to just get in touch with a compassionate, experienced human being, David's the guy.
Thank you, Sterling.
Good to see you. We'll catch up with you again next month.
Thank you.
This is The Law Show on CIL 650. Thank you so much for being with us. See you next time.